Welcome to Cut Daisies and Unicorns, and Phil and Steve are back once again. And yeah, it's a good day to be back. I don't know if it's back or just still. We continue to exist, and we just continue to exist now in the same space.
Yeah, it's true. It's so true.
Right.
Well, we feel like we've made some minor adjustments based on it seems like season 2 is starting out with a kind of a crawl.
Mm.
But it'll be interesting to see how we go out.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah, it really will be. And so
I think it's a process of still continuing to gain traction, trying to find, our unique niche and how we're going to be able to just find the grooves.
oh man, it's a little soliloquy towards listening to some vinyl. We're going to find the grooves.
We're going to find the grooves.
Man, what's that radio station? Is it 93.1? Is that KXRT?
Could be. Yeah.
John, you're at a blank. Is it KXRT?
I think it's just XRT.
XRT.
Okay.
All right, XRT.
Is that like rock? Classic? What is it? Classical
Oh,
rock?
man, they have all kinds of stuff.
Oh, yeah.
The gentleman that was on this morning makes it sound like he's actually like being a DJ live. Like he was looking out the windows. He knew today was a horrible day. Well, as far as the weather.
Overcast, rainy, drizzly.
Yep.
It's not my favorite.
And actually, he was like, based on the weather, I picked the music that we listened to totally based on like whether the sun's shining and stuff like that. And as he was describing it, I'm like, dude, I really like the tunes that you're picking for this cloudy day. It seemed to be something that was really enjoyable.
Rainy Day Woman.
And I don't know, actually, I think it was the Jayhawks, something about looking for the sun. Yeah. So anyway, he played a John Batiste tune
Yeah.
that was a new drop that I really liked a lot.
Yeah.
Had some honky-tonk piano in it, a little bit of a clap track. Yeah, it was really, really good. Calling Out for Love.
Wow.
I mean, kind of like I was thinking about it in a couple different bands that I've been in. They always laughed because I really like clap tracks. Yeah. So anyway, but yeah, we're getting started. Today is a Thursday morning in the dreary land of Albany Park.
It is dreary.
Yeah, and you don't like this weather.
No, not particularly.
See, this fits into my melancholy just really, really well.
Right.
Yeah, I enjoy it.
Okay.
I even still wore flip-flops even though it was raining. That's one of my rules kind of what shapes whether I'm going to wear flip-flops or not.
Yeah.
Now, ladies, if you're, about the shoes, you probably understand the difference between open toe and closed toe during
I'm
the
sure.
dreary weather.
Right.
If you're going to jump puddles, probably
shouldn't do it in flip-flops.
right, unless you want more of the experience of what it's like to be able to connect with water.
Right.
Yeah. So, anyway,
Yeah.
season 2 is at hand.
It is.
It's afoot. I've been watching a lot of Australian, British, and South African media,
Yeah.
and so I'm picking up. Don't get cheeky with me now.
Those phrases.
Oh yeah. What do they all have in common? An accent that's different than mine.
Right.
Yeah. And so, I'm sure I'll do a poor version
Oh yeah.
of any of those accents. Yeah.
John's got a pretty good accent with the Irish.
Yeah.
This is good.
Yeah.
It's entertaining to listen to.
Which came first, the entertainment or the whiskey and beer?
Yeah. It's true. That's like chicken egg stuff.
Uh-huh. Exactly.
Ooh. Yeah, which one came first?
Yeah. So Phil, what do you got going on?
Well, let's see. Yeah, when you were talking about music, I mean, I've been particularly, I listen to a lot of Sirius now. What is that? Sirius XM
Yeah.
stuff. Yeah. So multiple different channels, but what I like is that there's the guitarist from Rage Against the Machine,
Okay.
and anybody want to guess who that might be?
No.
All right, so Rage is a political band. I mean they were right out open. They're like, yeah, we're a political band, but they also ran into that even in the midst of the band. They had all these politics that caused them to kind of splinter. But the guitarist there, and why am I kind of blanking right now on his name? Tom Morello. Sorry, yeah. Like, so Tom Morello's got like this huge presence now on Sirius, and he does these radio shows, or I mean, ultimately it's kind of like a podcast because he records it and then they just put it out there. And
Yeah.
then so he'll pick different. So depending on what channel he's on, even though they play his music across the board, because he was also the guitarist for Audioslave. But he has this thing called Radio Commandante, where he's just taking over the channel, and then he's going to play the music whatever he wants to play. And to me, there's stuff that I've learned from him on there that I didn't even know he had written. So because he was in Audioslave when Chris Cornell committed suicide, it affected him, and he wrote a song called In the Garden of Gethsemane.
Huh.
And so it has some of those like Catholic tones because he was a Catholic boy. But yet at the same time, there's like, so many elements. I mean, it's kind of dark. It's a little bit, it's very heavily, I mean, he's really focusing on the lyrical content that's coming out of that, in particular. So that's, like to me, I've just been really listening to a lot of different stuff across the board. So yeah. So it's been fun to, I mean, because that they don't have commercials. And apparently, unless you're listening to Howard Stern, Howard Stern still has commercials.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
But yeah, so it's just so it's kind of interesting. I mean, eventually I'll just go back to the radio again, but
Yeah.
but it's been fun so far. I mean, they have a station that I always usually go back to quite a bit is just the Lithium, which is all 90s alternative.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so just a wide variety of stuff that they pick up on there too. So so that's what I mean, I enjoy music anyways, so it has a wide variety of music. You want to find a different genre, you just click the little category button, find what you want to, tune into. So.
Yeah. Go on a search, and then you're in good shape and good to go.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, very cool.
Yeah.
Well, in our next episode,
Yeah.
next week, we'll be taping with Cam Schneider.
Yeah.
Sir Cameron is from the 515 in Iowa, and he's going to join us and share a lot of different things. Cam has like some cool stories. He's not super old, but he's lived a lot of life. And so I'll be looking forward to that interview. And every time I drop a name on who we're going to interview, it ends up that it doesn't work out. So we'll see how this works out.
Right. It's kind of like putting it out there right now to make sure that the universe matches up.
Speak it into the universe. That's the goal of what we're trying to do.
Right.
Yeah. So anyway, and Cam's an avid listener. He's put in some time listening to the podcast.
Yeah,
so
good.
Yeah, that's super good. And you got some travel coming up.
Got some travel. Gonna go to the Sunshine State. Well, that's not. I'm not going to Florida, but there is a state that also has lots of sunshine, and I'm gonna go to Arizona for a little bit.
Which makes you Arizona man,
Right.
not Florida man. Okay. All right. Yeah.
Yeah, so my niece is graduating. So we're gonna head out there, see her go through that thing. Even though I think chances are we're gonna have to watch it on the TV,
Oh,
but
yeah.
we'll be there for her parties and all that.
Sure.
You know,
Yeah.
fun stuff as well. So that'll be good. And then we've got to get back because then Tyson's got finals before he graduates. So
Man.
yeah,
Can you, like, it's been a path.
right.
I mean, because when Ty graduates, I mean, there's still some monumental things that will come along the way.
Right.
But wow, I mean, you probably remember holding him as a baby, and you know, just all of those stages and things, and to come to this. How you feeling about that?
Yeah. I mean, I probably don't spend as much time thinking about it as I should, but
This takes us back to our conversation in regards to you feeling.
right,
Yeah.
exactly.
Why
Yeah,
do I feel like I'm talking to Science Mike right now?
Yeah, so I mean, yeah, it does. I mean, I look at it, and Ty's had his challenges across the board as far as spectrum disorder, autism spectrum, and most of the time people can't really identify it from him,
Right.
unless you know what you're
Looking for.
right. So I mean,
Or-
he's high functioning, understanding that, yeah.
But that was double-edged because I think the first time that I even became aware is I had set a glass on the table, and then like I walked out of the room but walked back into the room, and then my water glass. So it's like you have to know what you're looking for. I was looking for a glass of water, and then Heather took time to explain to me about his patterns. Yeah.
Yeah, and he definitely snatches them when primarily because his sister usually just leaves her water everywhere.
Sounds
And
like my
he's
truck
usually
with
trying
water
to, like,
bottles.
come behind her and picking up water glasses and making sure they're getting to the dishes, to get washed and all that other stuff. But
Yeah.
yeah, and his primary, is the auditory. So, like, if you're speaking to Ty, sometimes what he's trying to do is process, like, you're speaking this, and it's going into my head, and I'm trying to process what you're saying. Sometimes he doesn't, like, he'll want to spit something out before he's finished that process. And it's like, well, like, what is that? Like, where'd that come from? Like, he's, so he's putting out what he thinks was what you were saying.
Oh.
So, sometimes it'll, and if he gets into new situations, that's where he'll probably spit it out even sooner because he thinks you're going to want to hear a response sooner.
Oh.
So sometimes what you get with Ty is like, he's not responding and you're like, did he hear me? Did he understand? Like, sometimes he's still processing it. So, yeah. So it's all the quirks and the fun stuff that you get with kids. And now he's 18 and not a kid.
Right.
Right. So now it's the kind of the wonderful exploration stuff.
Okay.
Right?
Yeah.
He's like, I don't really know what I want to do. And maybe something in healthcare, maybe I don't know. Like,
Yeah.
I'm like, well, you don't have to know. That's cool.
Exactly. That's so true. And for all the people who are out there, and you're thinking about it, you're listening, and I guess really why I even brought it up is because on our live show, I was really interested in some of the topics that people wanted us to speak to. And one of those topics was, hey, what was it like to be a dad? How did you parent? There's people who are raising children and find themselves in a spot of not knowing what to do or where to go, or, and so they love to hear from us on how we navigate it and with what's going on. So that's why I wanted to bring that up. And it's there are some monumental things happening this month. Like
Right.
My daughter's getting married.
Exactly.
Yeah. And I mean, we get to Saturday and it'll be in 2 weeks. Whoa.
How are you feeling about that?
I have great joy about it. I really am excited for Adam and Michaela. And it'll be a lovely time. And that's cool. She did ask me to preside over the wedding.
Mm-hmm.
Whoa. Oh my gosh. This is like, I'm like, I cry during movies. How am I supposed to make it through a ceremony like this?
Right.
So I'm just planning on crying.
Yeah. You're going to let people like, hey, here's an announcement prior to. This is going to happen, and you're just going to sit through it.
PSA, public service announcement. Yeah. But as with most private weddings, I mean, it's not going to be this elongated hour and 15-minute ceremony. And I think when I performed Ben and Stephanie Reed's wedding, like I told them it would be like 17 minutes at the longest. I think at 13 minutes we were all done. And you know what? All the family and everyone who was there appreciated the brevity. So
It's efficient.
well, I mean, it's actually quite the opposite of what we do here on Cut Daisies and Unicorns. I mean, we're not efficient with our words at all.
We're not.
I mean, like, I'm pretty sure I read somewhere there was an article about YouTube and like how to get more views and stuff like that. And they're like, yeah, people, if you don't capture their attention within the first 3 minutes, they're probably clicking through and going to find something else.
Right.
Okay, well, we take the first 12 minutes to 20 minutes just to even warm up. So,
yeah.
I mean, it's probably why people are like, I don't want to listen to this shit.
We're stretching our audio muscles. Like we're saying, here, like, hold on. We got to get into this.
Oh, yeah. Plus, I do know that I think our energy is we're both night owls.
Oh, yeah.
And so, and John, our producer, is also a musician, which would be night owl-esque, wouldn't it? Yeah, he's definitely.
The night time is the right time.
But, I mean, so then we're like all up early and into the studio for what purpose? And because it's like John works in the afternoon and we really need a producer. And so we all make the roll out of bed and get into Albany Park to be able to do this. And it's in the morning.
Oh, yeah.
But when we did the live show, it was in the evening.
Right.
And we were all jazzed.
Which is also the reason why we went a little bit longer. I mean, we're engaging in conversation, right?
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Well, we had more influence, too. I mean,
Right.
of other people who were speaking into us. But, yeah, I mean, for Michaela and Adam, I mean, ultimately, I mean, Michaela's going to be 28.
Yeah.
I mean, she's a grown adult. I'm excited about her path, the things that she's thinking through and what she's processing and how that's going. Adam's got a good head on his shoulders. That dude, though, is quick-witted, and they're cleaning the street right now, which is why I couldn't park
Right.
on the street.
Yeah, and Adam's made some comments on YouTube about wanting to be on the show.
Yeah. And I'm holding him hostage for having someone who would be a sponsor. And so he drives for Iowa Beverage and delivers and schleps beers and all that stuff. And
Gonna
so,
hold out.
yeah, I'm like, yeah, just because you raise your hand doesn't mean I'm going to call on you.
That's a good statement.
I was watching a movie. Hey, and you know what? I'm gonna just totally left. We're gonna go in a different direction. Yeah, because I heard that in the movie, and you know, there's some student was arguing with the teacher and saying, "How come you always call on him?" And he's like, "Because he's always got the answers right." Well, we might have the answers right, and he's like, "Yeah, but I want to take a chance." And he said, "Just because you raise your hand doesn't mean I'm gonna call on you." So it was a movie quote. I don't remember what movie it was, but anyway, but my curveball is so often. And I reserve music to listen to music because there's like 3 channels on my radio that are Chicagoland based, and XRT it is, especially in the morning drive, it's my favorite to listen to. Yeah, and I mean, I heard "Wish You Were Here" this morning. Heard that new John Batiste song. And so I reserve music for the drives. But then when I'm doing projects, I like to hear the narrative of stories going on. So I've boiled it down to that as I'm working in the studio, I like movies with a good soundtrack. So we've talked about this, but I also have gotten into other things that hey, I can tune in, I don't have to pay attention, it's not going to move so fast, basically a current day version of soap opera, whatever that is, right?
Right.
All right. So I've been through NCIS in New Orleans, NCIS, the other one that's in some location, and Los Angeles.
Oh.
Yep. So then I was noticing Mark Harmon is like the producer on one of those.
Yeah.
And I'm like, well, wasn't he in the original NCIS? And the answer is yes. And so I thought, I remember the original NCIS from apparently 14 years ago. There's like 14 seasons or 15 seasons of NCIS.
Wow.
And when you're looking at, this kind of network TV, I mean, it's probably like, 20 episodes?
Yeah, I think between 20 and 24, right?
Yeah.
Originally.
Yeah.
They were doing those.
Yeah. So I'm figuring there's a plethora of background useless information, noise. Because when it gets to like stuff that's not useless, I need time to process it. And so like that's when I take time to, like I've seen all of Skinwalker Ranch now. All right. So I had no clue what you're talking about, but I have every clue now. Yeah. But then to be able to take that in, I can't just throw Skinwalker Ranch in while like I'm staining the floors at the studio.
Oh, right. Yeah.
I got to process
you wanna
this.
Pay attention.
Yeah, and there's things, visually to see. Now the thing about, those non-reality reality TV shows, there's so much repetition on them setting up for the commercial, and then when they come back and they do the recap, you watch every episode twice. Right. I mean, you really are. Every episode that you're viewing, you've seen all of the information at 2, if not 3 times each. Which I'm saying, Kevin Burns, you could change the way you're doing that. Unless what you're doing is you're getting a big stretch on production by not having to record too much. So anyway, and I can rabbit trail on Kevin Burns. Kevin Burns actually also produces Curse of Oak Island.
Oh, so there is the crossover between the two.
Well, they're very unique, and I'm not giving up on Skinwalker Ranch. I know that you and Fordyce have had conversations about the suspectness, but I had the same feeling with the Curse of Oak Island in the beginning seasons.
Oh.
And now I just saw an episode where at the Curse of Oak Island, they talked to the directors and the crew, and then the 2 brothers.
Yeah.
And with that, what they did is it came down to that they just recognized that they were green and it was awkward.
Yeah.
Kind of like shooting a podcast live. Or just doing it and recording it and the refinement to it. So by our 5th season, which will be 2.5 years from now, hold it. No, we're doing 4 seasons. So that'll be about a year from now.
Right.
By our 5th season of 10 episodes, I mean, we're going to have things worked out in a different way that we don't have worked out right now. So, Curse of Oak Island, where I'm at right now, and with what is unfolding, it's not about if there's a treasure. It's just will these people find it in our lifetime? Yeah, and with so I go back to Skinwalker Ranch.
Yeah,
I think they have the ability to like blow some of this stuff up, but I think that there is a reasonableness to the scientific things that they're doing, that they're finding out that something's going on. And again, if you can identify what you don't know, then you can gain knowledge, at least in being open to taking in what you don't know.
For sure.
All right, NCIS.
Yeah.
I'm back.
Coming back around.
All right, so NCIS.
Yeah.
Mark Harmon. During this first season, I have been blown away at the hashtag #MeToo of what is not being claimed for that whole thing. They have one guy on there, not only is chauvinist, but the things that he's saying in the workplace, totally not acceptable. That was 15 years ago. And so I'm really interested to seeing how in the progression, how this character changes, because he is flagrantly just sexual innuendo after sexual innuendo. It's the part that he's playing in the group.
Yeah.
But man, like, it makes me uncomfortable. I'm like, there's parts of this where I'm like, well, maybe I should fast forward to season 8 where I'm like, I don't want this kind of mindset, being poured into me. So anyway.
So what does NCIS stand for?
Navy or Naval Crime Investigation something. I don't know what the S is.
Okay.
But yeah, it's all, well, NCIS, the original one, has everything to do with, usually people are dying and they come to a dead body and try to figure out who did it.
So is this military crimes then? Like things that are happening within the actual Navy then?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Like one episode was one of the guys on the boat was feeding speed to his team, and he was taking capsules of caffeine, emptying them and putting meth in them and not telling the crewmen. And they finally figured it out. And so he had a guy on the inside that was substituting the urine test so that they were coming back clean. But these guys were freaking out, and I mean, like madmen.
Yeah.
On the deck.
I mean, you're on meth and you didn't know it.
Right. Yeah.
Right. Yikes. Yeah, I don't know if I've really ever watched NCIS. I'm sure I've come across an episode at some point in time, but
I wouldn't recommend it.
Oh, okay.
I mean, it literally has to be something where you're like, I just need some noise going on.
Right.
And then so when people are like, but as a mystic, why don't you enjoy the quiet? Oh, actually, no, my life is full of quiet. And so these are just like, I don't know. It just seems like as things are moving, and currently in the studio, since I'm still on that big project stuff, I don't have my record player set up.
Oh, right.
And so they're like, well, you could listen to Spotify or iTunes. And I'm like, yeah, actually, I have something against that. And so, I figure if I'm listening to the radio and listening to music, then the sponsors are paying the musicians, and that's going out there. Right. But Spotify pays so poorly, and I'm a fan of live music. Actually, I would like to figure out somehow how to be able to bring value back to the artist.
Yeah, that's good.
Yeah. And so I do that I've got a monthly budget on what I spend on vinyl and merch. Always buying, and just my problem is my t-shirts last so long. What ends up happening is then I get a drawer full of all these t-shirts. I mean, the great thing about COVID, I don't know if you know this, but by getting fat, then you have to change the sizes. So then all of the larges that I used to wear, I can't wear those anymore. So there's some really cool t-shirts out there at Goodwill right now.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
I've inherited some of yours too.
Yeah. It always makes my heart warm when I see you on social media and you're wearing like an American Aquarium t-shirt.
Right.
What was the other one?
Saint Errant, I think.
What's that?
The duck one, the Saint. Hold on, I'll look it up.
All right. I think that might have been a Rupke shirt.
Oh, it could be.
Yeah. Yeah. But now I have the when something comes in, something has to go out.
Mm-hmm.
It's a basic premise for humanity. Like if you eat, something goes in, something has to come out. Crickets. I got a smirk.
It's the problem of trying to do research on the spot and make sure.
I thought everybody liked a good poop joke. Oh, maybe that's the qualifier.
Maybe.
It was a poop joke. It just wasn't good.
Yeah, I'll have to find. I don't know. I'll find it though.
All right.
It could have been Rupke's shirt too.
All right. So I know there's the Heather Blue American Aquarium one,
Mm-hmm.
and then we have matching shirts.
We do.
Yeah, from Blackbird Brewery
Right.
in Traverse City, Michigan.
Uh-huh.
Yeah. So
And it goes with our Blackbird right there, right?
boom. Birds of a feather stick together.
Right.
Actually, it was in not Galena, LeClaire, Iowa this last weekend.
Mm-hmm.
And they have a store on the strip in LeClaire called the Black Crow. And you'd thought that I would have walked in.
Right.
Yeah,
No,
I
you
didn't. I didn't. I'm like, I'm going to let them do their Black Crowness and I'll do my Black Crowness.
Yeah, there's some like if you're on the Wisconsin side, I think they, a lot of spotted cow up there, brewery stuff.
Yeah, but that's like Dubuque and Galena.
Right.
Yeah, but I was like an hour 15 south at
right.
LeClaire.
Okay.
Right on like the Quad Cities area.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So
Very cool.
But we in dealing with this whole media thing, and people are probably like, again, here we are, how many minutes in, and people are like, what are we going to get to anything that matters? Maybe not.
We talked about some parenting, so yeah, so people probably do wonder, where are you going today?
Well, I always think about it the day before.
Yeah.
I spend some time. You and I never really talk about it unless we get into like a conversation pre-production.
It's true.
Usually when there's like some whacked out things, we like to get John's perspective on things. That helps feed us.
Right.
If for no other reason, it fills our bucket of sarcasm in a way that is enjoyable for all of us here.
It's true.
But yeah, we had a big event yesterday.
We did, and that's something we did talk about last night.
Yeah, yeah. And it's actually a lot of most of this. I mean, I talk from personal experience, and I definitely take on opinion in a greater format here. And I've been working on my non-IPR voice or NPR voice, just trying to do more inflections and just be more natural in the way that I talk. Otherwise, I can get right in here and just be talking all
The smooth sound.
the smooth sounds of Steve. People are like, that's so not you. I think that's why it was so glaringly, opposing to a lot of people who know me. But, yeah, so I don't bring up the studio often.
Right.
And then I was thinking about it. Do you realize how many studios we have? We have a lot of studios.
We do.
We're
Lots of studio
spinning
space.
a lot of studios plates
Right.
is what we're doing, because we have this, which is the new studio at Cut Daisies and Unicorns, which is, I don't know, a video podcast studio.
Yeah.
I mean, pretty much is what that boils down to.
That's what it is.
We can record music,
We could.
and we never heard from anyone on what name to call the studio on the corner of Sunnyside and Drake for like having people come in for our listening room.
Right.
We don't have any names for that yet.
There's no name.
It won't be spoken into reality until we can name it.
Right.
Then we'll claim it.
Yeah. So maybe somebody out there in the podcast listener Say, oh, I have some good ideas for names for a listening room.
Yeah. But we definitely discovered a few weeks ago that space is going to work out.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
And we did the live show there, and
yeah. And so with that, there's that studio. Then there's the Earth and Warehouse studio.
right.
Now, all of those, the prior studios are technology based. And this is an art studio.
Right.
And where I'm going to do clay sculpture and pottery, and down the road, not immediately, for all those who are like looking forward to having classes there, it'll eventually happen, but not immediately.
Yeah.
And based on the big projects, I've proven that things usually take longer than I plan. Oh, man. So anyway, the last major project at Earth and Warehouse Studio, floor was damaged
Right.
from a leak in the roof.
Mm-hmm.
It ruined the plaster on the walls and some on the ceiling.
Mm-hmm.
Then the water settled on the floor and it damaged the floor. Upon pulling back the floor and looking to repair the floor, asbestos was found.
Mm-hmm.
Course of action, tape off the asbestos. They followed the guidelines as far as, being able to do that, had it concealed, no problem going. And I wore the appropriate mouth breathing apparatus covering. I probably didn't wear the appropriate clothing. But all I did was pull back the tape and the plastic, and then I sealed it in per the guidelines.
Right.
And then covered it up, painted over that, and then I looked at the floor, and the floor had like a sag, 2.5 to 3 inches in it.
Right.
And so then I went on to apply to YouTube University. And how do you level a floor?
Mm-hmm.
That in itself was a challenge.
Right.
But once that happened, then I figured out my transitions needed. So I used self-leveling floor concrete.
Mm-hmm.
And after that happened, I put down knotty pine. Once I got the knotty pine in, what I figured out is that my nail gun that I was using, yeah, it didn't go through all the concrete very well. So I had to pull all the nails out that like got bent up and stuff, and then I screwed the whole floor down with decking screws. And I was going to cover them, and I thought, this is too much work. So I left them sunken in. And so that was going really well.
Mm-hmm.
Then I was at a place where I needed to stain the floor.
Right.
Except in my head of what I thought would look good, I couldn't do it just with one stain. So my first level of stain I did white. My last level of stain I used, everybody's going to make fun of this, I have a Pinterest account.
Oh.
I've had a Pinterest account for over a decade. But anyway, on Pinterest, person who did a knotty pine floor had a homemade remedy stain to be able to use. Now, in theory, I could have used a stain or a couple of stains that were mixed up, but I chose this. And based on our current present, what I can do is I can speak into someone else's future. And that is that if you use linseed oil with oil-based Rust-Oleum paint, and you mix it 50-50, and you put it on a floor, broad surfaces, I'm sure this would be totally different if you individually did the boards before you dropped it down.
Sure.
I didn't want to do that.
Right.
Then, if you take the rags that you are wiping the floor up with once you get the stain onto the wood, and you pile them in your galvanized 30-gallon, 40-gallon garbage can, which is currently being used as a construction trash can.
Yeah.
And if that trash can has 3 bags of dumped sawdust, stir sticks built out of pine. I actually peeled up. This is probably what did it. I had put paper on the floor so that when I was walking across the floor, I wouldn't stir up the stain.
Yeah.
I wadded that all up and put that on top of the 20-some rags full of linseed oil and Rust-Oleum. And then if you go to wipe off your hands, because, see, my fingernails are black because of the black stain. But if you take turpentine or paint thinner and then you put that in a paper towel-esque type of material,
Yeah.
and then turn on a really big fan to dry down the floor, but don't open the windows, you can actually start a combustible fire.
You can. Hey, John, pull up camera 4. So, this was one of the shots from last night. The fire department pulled up, and because it was a reported fire, they also had to check the roof to make sure that there was no fire that was shooting elsewhere. And so they climbed up on the roof. There's a ladder right there that they climbed up on the roof. And
you got more pictures left of this? I haven't even seen this stuff.
yeah, sorry, yeah. Let's yeah. So here, let me pull up this one. And so this one right here was the young man who lives across the alley. His name is Zion.
Oh.
He was the one that spotted it.
Zion came to Tabor, and then what we see that Zion he's on the 3rd floor in the apartment building across from the studio, and Zion thought what was happening. He thought somebody was like there's a lady who does Zumba in a different room on that floor, and he thought somebody had flipped on the lights. But what he actually saw, the combustible fire breathe into life.
Right.
And so as he was looking at it, he went and he told his mom, he's like, "Hey, I see something."
Right.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. So Zion and his mom and then Eddie were with, so they were like, "Let's call 911." So they called it in, and then Eddie came running over to the house, and knocking on my door or ringing the doorbell, and I'm like, "Who is this?" Like, what? It was like, what? I don't know what time.
8 o'clock,
yeah,
8:15,
somewhere in there.
Yeah.
Like, okay. So comes knocking on, like, and he's all out of breath. Like, "There's a fire." I'm like, "A fire? Like, what do you mean fire?" Like, he's like, "Yeah, over," and I was like, "Oh, like, is it outside or something?" I thought he was talking about next door. He was talking about at church.
Oh, wow.
All right. Let's go and take a look. And so, so I grabbed my keys and went up to the studio area and saw a number of things. And Heather was the one who took the photos because I was engaged with the fire department and police department, and yeah, so that was it was an interesting. But here's the thing. I mean, like, we're glad that the shot that you see on there right now, it's a metal garbage can.
It is a metal, which was
very good, because if this was plastic, that fire would have gone onto the floor. Floor was stained.
Yeah.
Could have combusted much bigger.
Oh my word, yeah. Yeah. And I went this morning. It was Phil called last night. He's like, "There's a fire in the studio." I'm like, "Okay, do you want me to get in the car and drive there?" I'm thinking the studio burns up by the time I get there. What do you want me to do? And then, so an event like this in life,
right,
lets you think through all the things that you don't have done well.
Yeah. Like
the copy of the key that I was going to get you 7 months ago.
Yeah.
Yeah. Didn't have the key to Phil. The other thing is, earth and warehouse liability insurance. Yeah, probably need to look into that. You know, and I know the church has insurance for the structure, but, you know, with, you know, the whole rental stuff and content and all that other stuff, I'm like, the church's insurance isn't going to cover, like, you know, and I'm already working with a bit of awe and trepidation, because it's one thing to have a studio in your home.
Right.
And then you're there and all the stuff and paying attention and, you know, everything going on. And so I had already committed. Actually, I have a cot ordered, because usually it takes about 12 hours to fire. And so how I'm going to do that is I'm planning on, I know, and it may be that I just don't go to bed, but then I just drive down to the studio and then start the firing process. But I'm planning on the cot being there so that when I'm there at 4 a.m, I can get some more rest while I'm clicking through and all this stuff. And people are like, you just had a fire and you're going to sleep through one? No, I mean, in theory, the kiln's safe. I mean, in theory. But, again, fire. So we need some fire extinguishers in that space. Need the spare key in that, not only in your possession, but also in case of an emergency.
Well, I'm glad that they were able to open the door without, like too much. I mean, like, they didn't. I mean, good thing door still locks. They didn't punch in the window.
Yeah.
So, good thing.
Yeah.
But yeah, so that was some excitement. Yeah, definite. Like, you know, talking to the different fire. I mean, like, they had like 2 fire departments come out. Like 2 trucks were parked out there on Sunnyside, and
well, it could have gotten bad fast.
it could have.
Yeah.
Which is why they're like, oh yeah, like if this wasn't contained, like these old churches go up.
Yeah.
So yeah, it could have been much worse. I'm glad that Zion and his family saw the things that were happening before that spilled out over. So.
Oh, man. I'm telling you. That's, yeah.
Right.
I was telling Amy this morning as we were talking about it that the thought that's really going through my mind about it is I had gotten to I was so relieved last night to walk away. Second coat of stain. I mean, it was a lot of work. Like, I was doing the Mr. Miyagi thing, you know, like wipe off more, wipe off more, you know, and 325 square feet hand stained, you know, I mean, just doing that. And I was so relieved last night just to be able to come home, take a shower, sit down, and like my body ached from, you know, I mean, everybody makes fun of Danielson, but that's a workout. And especially when you're committed to being a couch potato. Right. I'm like, what? Okay.
Mr. Miyagi knew what he was talking about.
Oh my gosh, he certainly did. And, but I told Amy, I'm like, you know, isn't it interesting that here I've been working toward, and every project as a project of the studio has been an art project for me. I got the galaxy wall, you know, and, you know, everything that was going on. I mean, thankfully, what I didn't do as well is oftentimes that garbage can sits underneath the sawhorse table.
Ooh.
I just push it out of the way, you know. This one, it was full enough with what was going on that and actually, in my head, I was like, oh, I should just empty this out and take this down and put it in a dumpster, which could have created more problems because as the fire in the dumpster, although living through an actual dumpster fire versus like being a dumpster fire in life, I mean, you know, it was one of those things. But I was thinking about the cable wires that could have gotten burned by it being I mean, the fire department would have put out the fire in the dumpster.
Right.
I mean, but how interesting is it like that we work towards the pretty presentation, and I'm like, man, it just comes down to that the studio's got a scar. And there's some parts of this scar that aren't going to go away. I can paint over and clean up the sooty colored, like on the paint on the wall. On the galaxy wall, I don't know if I'm going to just leave it the way it is or if I'm going to restore it. I don't know. I'm going to leave it for a while. It's not on my priority list.
Right.
My priority list is to put down water-based polyurethane without starting another fire.
There's a goal.
Oh,
That's the
man. Yeah.
It's
But
the dream.
it does speak into what we were talking about on the last podcast on how humanity likes to cover up stuff and how humanity likes to uncover what is unknown, and just coming back to, man, no matter how we portray ourselves to other people, all of humanity's walking through with its own woundedness, its own scarring. And sometimes our shortness with others is our dealing with not being open to how other people have been scarred.
Yeah, and I think that we also all look at with that as saying, I mean, just like you were talking about, should we clean it up right now? Should we make sure that wall looks like that nothing ever happened there? Well, you could do that.
Yeah.
Or you could say, you know what, this is a story to tell.
Yeah.
There's parts of where we try to cover up ourselves.
Yeah.
And we say, like, if I cover up myself so much that no one's going to tell that I have stories.
Yeah.
I mean, and that's part of what we're doing here. We're uncovering stories.
Yeah.
We want to find out the depth of people.
Well, I chuckled too because of the Great Fire of Chicago and what happened with the destruction of the town at the time, and all the rebuild and new construction that happened post Chicago fire. And I thought, wow, Chicago Fire 2021, Earthen Warehouse Studio.
Right.
But yeah,
Add to the
so
story.
I'm still kind of reeling about, okay, like I knew what my plans were. And this happened earlier this week as well. I like the way my day started. I'm like, oh, and I was really proud. Like, I think in a good way, not in a like puffed up, arrogant way, but I was proud. I identified that day was going to be a day of interruptions. And it turned out to be that way. Now, some people who are like talking about speaking reality into the universe, it's not like all I did internally was say, oh, Steve, you need to take a breath because what's going to happen in your day is what you have planned isn't going to go the way you wanted it to go.
Right.
And so with that, I got to enjoy a great conversation for about an hour with my son. I dealt with the really, I'm at a loss for the word, but basically stuff wasn't at the stores where I went to, so I had to go to multiple stores. I'm like, what in the world? Okay, all right. And today I was going to put down the first coat of poly. That's not happening.
Right.
And so, I'll clean up the floor, and every there's ashes all across the whole floor. I could encapsulate history in the floor by putting
Polyurethane
with the
on
poly.
top of it.
Yeah. And all of a sudden, we wonder if the DNA from the alien that actually started the fire would be trapped there, but we could replicate it.
Alien fire.
So, events.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You never know the things are going to come up.
Man.
Disruptions.
It is. It is. So as the listeners, I would just give pause for the question of how do you handle things when things don't go the way you planned?
Right.
Yeah,
what do you do with disruption?
Yeah. In the world of professional church worker, we always, considered interruptions as an opportunity to be able to take time and help others. but and it's glorified in a way of this is how we can treat others is when they interrupt us. And I'm like, or people could be considerate and not interrupt you. They could plan to make an appointment and a time to meet. Or, then there's just parts where life throws you curveballs. You like baseball. So
I do.
you can appreciate somebody who can hit a home run off of a curveball.
Right. Or a slider.
A slider. What about the floater?
The knuckleball. No, it's not really a lot of people who throw the knuckle anymore.
No. I don't know much about the current players, but there's definitely been an evolution of the sport.
But when you can throw a good knuckleball like that one's a secret pitch right there.
Yeah.
If you can make your knuckleball look like it's coming in like fast and then the thing just dies, you're like, whoa.
But it's got to get over the plate. Yeah. So anyway, that's big news out of Albany Park is we had us a trash can fire. The mini version of the dumpster fire.
Exactly. There's all kinds of dumpster fire jokes right here. Insert your own dumpster fire joke.
Yeah.
You think you had a trash.
I know. I might be a trash panda. I don't know.
Trash panda. Yeah, so Steve, you were talking about television shows, NCIS, things that you played in the background. I have been watching a show. It's an FX show. Apparently it's been out for a long time. I just hadn't caught on to it.
There's so much information out there.
Right. And so I just saw it come across. Actually, it was one of those ones Heather's like, she didn't want to watch anything or she was doing something else. She's like, well, you just watch, I don't know, pick that one right there, So that's how I came across it. And it's called Snowfall. And it's about the...
Like cocaine?
It's about cocaine, right? Snow, right?
Wow.
And it's about the 80s cocaine kind of rush.
Now, in context.
Yeah.
I mean, just to help our listeners understand, how old were you in the 80s?
Depends.
So
early.
You're not wearing Depends.
So 1980, I would have been 2.
All right. But then by 1989, you would have been 11.
Right.
All right.
So that's kind of
just in context of life experience, so I'm thinking when you say cocaine and you're talking about Snow Patrol, my mind moves to Miami Vice, Don Johnson. That's also mid-80s.
It is.
And what also, just to let our listeners know, I graduated high school in 1985.
Oh,
all right. So that gives a context of what's happening in the 80s.
Right.
We're not talking about 90s grunge.
Nope.
And we're not talking about 70s
disco
or any of the other movement and motion and music in the 70s. All right. So,
so
Snow Patrol.
Snowfall. Yeah, so Snowfall.
Snow Patrol is a band.
and Snow Patrol is a band. I think they might have a Snow Patrol movie, one of those campy ones, but either way, not associated. But
Snowfall. FX. You're watching this on Hulu.
But I'm watching it on Hulu.
Okay.
Because FX and Hulu now have a partnership. So so here's the thing. What the 1980s, they were, there was the Iran-Contra affair.
Yeah, which takes us to Ronald Reagan and Oliver North.
Right.
All right.
So the CIA was working covertly to be able to bring cocaine in so that they could fund the Contras, so that because as we know, our government likes to mix themselves up in all kinds of worldly affairs.
And by worldly, you mean like global affairs.
Right.
Yeah, not like the religious context of worldliness.
No.
Okay.
So they get themselves mixed up with all of this, and they believe that what they have is a vested interest in seeing one side win over the other. And so that's what was happening. So then cocaine comes in, and so cocaine's expensive. Black and brown communities are looking at that price tag of regular white powder coke and saying, that's out of our price range. We can't sell that here. So what they did was they took powder cocaine,
Yeah.
learned a formula, turned it into crack cocaine, rock cocaine.
Rock.
And that was they were able to then sell rock cocaine, crack cocaine, in a cheaper, price.
Price point.
So price point, you buy a rock,
Yeah.
and they can sell that for much less. But so when you're looking at this and saying, so our government was involved in bringing cocaine, which then evolved into crack cocaine into our communities, causing all kinds of and this is in the 1980s. Then you're looking at a huge bump and increase of the war on drugs, and
Well, Nancy Reagan
was
is
just
doing
say no.
Just say no.
And so if you're looking at this and saying, so they're the ones bringing it in,
Right.
they're funneling it into these communities, and then they're creating the system by which they are then imprisoning people because of their use of it. You're like, something's really off here.
Which again takes us back to a conversation in regards to, I think one of Joe Biden's things that he wants to do is shut down privatized prison.
Right.
Because of the capitalism that's tied into prisons.
Right.
And so if you keep the prisons full, this is a moneymaker for capitalists. And the idea of that, a lot of people aren't even aware that they think that all prisons are run, whether it's in local proximity,
Right.
by county, by sections of the community, then on the state level, and then you have the federal level, and all of the offenses that go with that. But what a lot of people don't know is there are a lot of prisons that are privatized.
Privatized. Yep.
And again, bringing up more questions that we
Prison
have.
labor.
Yep.
And then prison labor comes in, and they're making money off of these prisoners.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, so you get all this, and then what you have then in the 1980s, then you're finding, as they are doing this whole war on drugs, they are then categorizing powder cocaine
Yep.
as a less offense than a rock cocaine. Where is the rock cocaine? It's in communities of color.
Right.
And so they're just a whole messed up system by which you are then saying, yeah, I know we funneled it in there and we funneled it into these communities of color, but this is bad stuff, and now we're going to punish you because you're hooked on it now.
Yeah. And so for people who are listening to this and it's the first time you've ever heard of this, then I would send you to really, it would be 5 Minutes with Phil. I think we get into more in depth if they go into our conversation. Probably it was around the George Floyd incident about a year ago, but they could look up 5 Minutes with Phil. I think because our interview was so long, you broke that up into 4 or 5 episodes.
Yeah, it was a week long.
Yeah, week-long thing, and to be able to break that up. But you could be able to hear more in depth. And if you are of the mindset, you're like, I'm just tired of all this chaos that's coming out and everything that's, you feel that it's propaganda that's being pushed on culture. The reality is that there are deep threads historically of, just people in power creating a situation to be able to take advantage or create an advantage for themselves and at the expense of other humans. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think that's where, resources and helping people to understand this, because this is something that's been a part of our history, but it's not always something that's highlighted. Like the indiscriminately criminalizing, rock cocaine over powder cocaine.
Yeah.
And being able to find that wealthy people can pay their way out of it, while poor people who are now addicted to rock are being thrown in prison.
Yeah.
and for long sentences.
Yeah.
And so then you're looking at this disproportionate. I mean, the 1980s was a huge jump in incarceration.
Yeah.
And then it becomes, oh, we can make money off of these incarcerated people. Oh, we now have a benefit. There's a benefit, the price tag of incarcerating people.
I don't know if the word argue is really the right word to use, but I would put out there that there was already a model with Jim Crow.
Oh, yeah.
And so, like, it's something that people were looking at, but I mean, it's evil minds. And when, like, that's where I've come to a place to just pull back and say, I don't trust either side. I mean, I know it's tribalism, but I'm going to move into a point of community where I'm pulling back and I say, I don't trust either side.
Yeah.
When it comes to politics.
Right. And what I would say, I mean, continue to try to educate. I mean, watch The 13th, which is a movie on Netflix. Great kind of history lesson on that. But what it takes me to is George Floyd.
Yeah.
And because that trial with the ex-police officer who was convicted of murder.
On all counts.
But if you noticed, and here's the thing of what happens when we take these perspectives, is that what they were trying to be able to do with George Floyd is not say that the knee on the neck for almost 9 minutes is going to cause somebody, doesn't matter what condition you're in, it's going to kill you when you are choking somebody for that long.
Yeah.
Doesn't matter that, right? But what was being defended was, well, this guy was on a whole bunch of substances. He was addicted.
Yeah.
He was, meth or whatever. Like, I'm going to list all of the reasons because of his addictions that we're going to justify murder.
Right.
Like, and this is what we've gotten to. That all of a sudden it was like, no, it's okay, everybody. We're allowed to murder people when they're addicted to drugs. And I know that's an exaggeration.
Yeah, and I don't think all people land there as far as how it works with their thought process. And, there's probably people in the religious right that are like, well, this is sin, so there needs to be a punishment. And there's probably people on the left who would be like, hey, I don't even know like where that ends up landing, other than people, and that's why there's a split and divide, and such a great split and divide even in our current country, right now, just in regards to this. There's some people, I'm sure I won't qualify it with the region of the United States and things like that, but they're like, this is an injustice to the police department. And then there's other people on the other side that are like, well, I'm anti any kind of reformation that would take place because police are the people who keep us safe. And the more and more, I would say, look in the mirror and look at your skin color. And if you are Caucasian, you will feel that the police keep you safe. If you are a person of color, testimony after testimony after testimony after testimony is fear of law enforcement because of prejudice. People of color don't call the police when they're in difficult situations because they feel like what's going to happen is that the police are not going to take them out of a dangerous situation. They're concerned that the situation may magnify itself based on the police being involved. And so there is a reality that is a discrepancy within our perceived realities of what we think. Now, does that mean by this statement that I'm saying, hey, I think we should shut down the police? I don't feel that way. I don't feel that way at all. What I am saying is, I do believe everyone across the board should be aware that reformation should occur on multiple spectrums. One of them has to do with the police. And so, and there's some good programs that are coming up in the existing system, as well as people who are outside of the system to be able to work towards such reforms. Mm-hmm. And if you're anti-reformationist, then I would say look at history and how has the evolution of society led to reformations that have occurred all over the place.
Right.
And you live in the United States. By the way, you do know that you are a revolutionist.
Right.
Right?
Almost by family history.
So come on. Take time to back this up and take a look at it. And if you say you don't have the numbers to prove this and this is, an opinion, it's not an opinion piece. Nope. This is really a reporting piece to bring information, to you concerning this.
Right.
George Floyd broke my heart. And basically it was in lieu of the current governmental system that was in place at the time, and how that when people of color were going through situations that people of color's lives were being taken, and there was the justification was, well, they're criminals, and that's not always the case. Now somebody could go back, well, he was passing counterfeit, that's why they called the police. Mm-hmm. Well, so you have a drug addict who's passing counterfeit bills, and hold it, our government has been involved in the trafficking of drugs to people of color. Really, the systemic problem goes beyond this man was, passing counterfeit. You say it's against the law, that shouldn't happen. Well, yeah, I think that we're working.
You be executed on the spot because of it. Like, and that's the part.
And then a year later, somebody thought they were pulling their taser and pulls their gun and shoots another person of color?
Right.
Come on. Come on.
Yeah, and you take a look at just yesterday, the Ahmaud Arbery case, resurfaced because I think that the local jurisdiction wasn't doing anything with those who were responsible for murdering him. Mm. And so the United States government went after these three gentlemen, these three guys, because they were saying this is a hate crime.
Yeah.
And you can see then to be able to, and you can argue and say, well, why is it? Well, if no one's stepping in here, then at least the federal government's going to say, no, we're going to prosecute on a federal level for a hate crime then.
Yeah.
Because it doesn't seem like you're trying to do it. So I'm glad that somebody's stepping in there. Like, somebody's got to say something.
Yeah.
And that's another one that was on video that, hey, if that wasn't caught on video, chances are nobody says a word.
Yesterday, pre-fire, I was leaving the studio and driving down the street to be able to get to Foster to go to the interstate. Mm-hmm. And I saw two black gentlemen were next to, it looked like a car that was in distress because there was a tow truck backed up. And I saw this one gentleman grab the other gentleman by the neck. And so all of a sudden, I'm like, where's my phone? Because you've taught me this. Mm-hmm. When you see something, get your phone out, get ready. And what then I noticed was the other gentleman put his hand on the back of the neck of the other guy, and it was more of a consoling thing. Mm-hmm. It wasn't something that moved into, I thought somebody was going to like start throwing down or whatever.
Right.
And I saw other people, some were masked, some were not masked, but I was like, oh man, I'm coming up on this. What's really going on? But it's interesting how we then get conditioned to how are we going to watch and look at with what's going on. And my challenge to humanity on this whole thing is what you're interested in is just taking care of your own interest. Is it cool to go on a mission trip because you're going to a third world country to be able to take care of people who are in poverty, and really you have neighbors within a 5-mile radius who are living in poverty and are like in situations of great harm. So how can we puff ourselves up for what seems to be something that makes us look good, and yet we turn a blind eye to who is our neighbor?
And thinking locally is a good thing. Instead of just ignoring things that are happening, we're going to say we're also going to look locally. What's happening in my neighborhood? What's happening in my city?
And I think you and I are on the same page in regards to really in that conversation, we're asking this question: can we help everyone? The answer is no.
Right.
So who are we going to help? We're going to help the people that we come in contact with, and we're going to look for people in the context of what our life is to be able to help and be aware of people who may need help.
Right.
Yeah,
and I always look, like just me personally, I look towards the disenfranchised.
Yeah.
Those who don't often get the voice. And how can you be a voice to the voiceless?
Yeah.
Because, and this is the way that right now the system works, is that because, prior, like I'm a white dude, and some people are going to listen to me that aren't going to listen to other people. Becoming
the voice for the voiceless, and rubbing up against or pushing against the lines of resistance in regards to people who would argue about it or give great resistance to it. And I think when I consider how, like, when you talk about poverty, or when you talk about like I live a life of great wealth. What is that great wealth? I feel like I have people that if something was done against me, that they would stand with me. That's it's not about dollars and cents in the bank account.
Right.
And what we can share, the greatest cost, think about it. The greatest cost is giving of ourselves, whether it's time, presence, being available, moving into those things. And quite frankly, I moved back to the Great Fire of 2021 in regards to Earth and Warehouse. If it was not for community, we would have lost part of the church, right? Part of a building where my studio is at. And I think of all, but there was Zion. How old Zion? 12?
Yeah.
Yeah. So here's a 12-year-old who has within him, there's something that's wrong. We need to tell someone about it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm grateful he did.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah. So that's what I think another, just the challenge for us is that when we're sucked into tribalism, is that we start to be able to question and say, what's the other angle? Like, because there's always going to be, like, my side is not going to be the only perspective. I've got to be able to ask the questions of what else is happening, what else is around me.
Yeah, which is a great theme of a different way to ask that question is, how can I be community? Mm-hmm. How can I move past my team and become community. I used to have people in my post-life job as a worship director. One of the things that people would, I might offhanded say, man, I don't like this song that we're singing. And people are like, well, you know the guy who picks out the songs. Why don't you pick out the ones that you like? I'm like, that's not serving the whole community. Mm-hmm. There are people who have an interest in different things that just because I'm not personally invested in this song in a way that it hits me, that doesn't mean that it's not going to hit. So I would literally each week when I was picking out songs, I would look through the song list and say, all right, which one aren't you comfortable with? Which one would you prefer not to, but having listened to people talk about how the song hits them and how they interact with deity based on the words and melody, how does that, what one would you pick? Yeah. And it was a general practice in my life to be able to pick out something that would make me less comfortable, just for the sake of the greater good. And that's the call out. It's the call out to you as the listener. Mm-hmm. When are you taking yourself to set aside for the sake of something that's greater and within your scope? And that may just flat out be being nice to somebody you don't want to be nice to.
Right. Yeah. So find yourself, challenge yourself.
Yeah. Which is a theme. It's a thread.
Oh, yeah.
We're asking people. It's why I brought up, hey, what do you got going on? You're moving into a different season when you have your son graduate from high school. Right. So in this season, and to our listeners, what season are you in? And what season do you see coming? Mm-hmm. And we're asking for raised awareness within ourselves to be able to move towards others. That's what we have while we have time here.
Right. And then going back to bringing this circle, right, is to be able to say, and don't worry about trying to cover up all the ugly parts that brought some scars. Don't worry about being able to say, you know what, this is me.
Yeah.
And I'm not going to, I just don't cover it up.
Yeah.
And just say, hopefully, if you're going to be scared of this, then I know that,
yeah,
you've got some work to do, not me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah. And I think the other part is that we're coming from a place where we're not saying, because of you pushing back, whether it's in your mind or pushing back, to any of these ideas or the information, doesn't make us hate you.
Right.
It doesn't make us want to move against you. You are not our enemy. What we're doing is saying, we come to the table. We come to the table with preconceived biases. We come to the table with the history of what we've grown up, and then we come to the table and be like, holy cow, this is going on? Well, maybe that affects how you vote. Maybe that affects, as you're going through the grocery store, maybe you start picking up items that can go to a food pantry or a supply hive, as we'll learn next week. How can you be involved? And you're like worried about this repeating cycle that's happening within humanity. Don't worry about the repeat. What can you do right now? And so as the nation opens up, as the pandemic continues, as we see things that we don't know how this is all going to work out, we just take it one day at a time. Just one day at a time. Mm-hmm. Make the decisions for the day, in the moment, and be able to look at ourselves in the mirror and say, I did the best I could with what I had for right now.
Mm-hmm. So something else people right now can do in this moment.
Okay.
Like, subscribe.
you can make a difference in our life that may not make a difference in yours, but at least, yeah. And you know, I think one of the things that I'm gonna research. I've never done this before. I don't know how it affects the edits or anything like that. But on different people in YouTube, they put markers in so that like you can take your cursor and go across the video, and the markers flag topic content. And so I think what I may do is I may start working that out because we move in segments.
We do.
And so then I can flag the segment for, hey, we're going to be talking about music here. And hey, we're talking about seasons here. And hey, we're talking about TV shows here. And hey, we're talking about, you know, life, things that matter in life, you know, here and stuff like that. And so I may do that so that you can navigate an hour to an hour and a half worth of content and get to the content you like. And, or maybe not.
Yeah. And then when the stuff that you don't like, you're like, maybe I'll listen to it to challenge myself.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Good challenges.
Yeah. So, like, subscribe,
Comment.
add some comments, add some depth. We've been getting some people on YouTube commenting.
Yep.
So it's always a good thing.
And as always, you can, you'll see at the end of the video, you can get a hold of us at cutdaisiesandunicorns@gmail.com. And so we'd love to hear more. We are tipping our toe into a new resource as well that will allow us to partner with other people who are available to be guests. And so, yeah, looking forward to how this next season develops.
Right. Me too.
All right.
It's going to be good.
All right. Well, hey, thanks for hanging out with us, everybody.
Yeah.
We are certainly glad that you took the time and get the word out. We got a new reveal, 7 o'clock tonight. We'll put out the trailer for this episode, and on Sunday evening at 7 p.m., we will be going with a premiere event on YouTube and everything being released. And so I know that's another part of the, hey, how do we get traction on this? But we're going to wait and see how that might work out for everyone. So let us know.
Yep. Glad that you stuck around, and be well, everybody.
Take care.